This processing plant in Fremantle usually exports 500 boxes of live rock lobsters every day, most of them ultimately bound for mainland China via Hong Kong. But today they're down to just 40 crates because of a trade dispute with Beijing that's brought the industry to its knees.
New regulations have resulted in difficulty in getting lobster over the border. Obviously it means that there's going to be a problem in us distributing our product, which means there'll probably be a backlog which will affect prices.
The Chinese have finally accepted that the grey trade is something that they would like to slow down, if not eradicate, and have taken steps to let Australia know by closing the door on the lobster imports via Hong Kong, which in fact avoids the payment of tariffs.
Ken Smith runs a family lobster export company just south of Hobart, where 85% of his business is with China. He says his tanks are full and the industry is virtually at a standstill.
This is the worst it's ever been since I started here, yeah. We've got 9 tonnes sitting in the tanks, no prospects of any exports. Local prices have crashed, and if things continue for any more than a week or two, we might be closing down.
On the first day of the West Australian rock lobster season a month ago, fishermen were getting $50 a kilo for their catch. Today they're getting just $25.
We cannot work at these prices. We'll all go broke this way. So they have to pull their finger out and do something about it.
Ian Riccardi has been fishing off the Perth coast for 30 years. He's furious the industry has become so dependent on the duty-free trade route into China via Hong Kong.
If this industry relies on the black market, I'm sorry, there's something wrong here. I mean, so what industry in the world relies on a black market to sell their product? They should have thought of this before, not just now.
To export lobster to China legally is a much more expensive operation. So we have a situation where some sellers and buyers try to avoid that tariff.
And they do that by going through Hong Kong?
They go through Hong Kong, yes.
The murky path has existed for so many years, and it was just a convenient thing to do. The Australian government certainly has been aware of it. The word grey trade to Hong Kong has been on the lips of ministers and other people for many, many years. That we've allowed it to continue is quite extraordinary, really.
Peter Wensky is an international business consultant who has lobbied the Chinese government on behalf of companies and industries wanting to get access to lucrative Chinese markets. He says he was warned a crackdown was coming.
There was a warning given in the sense that we were briefed by Chinese authorities in March this year that they would take action.
The federal government says while there's no blanket ban on Australian lobster imports to China, embassy officials are trying to get to the bottom of the disruption. The Fisheries Minister denies any knowledge of the grey trade out of Hong Kong.
I'm not aware of that until you've just raised it, but what's important is that we do get to the issue at hand to see what the technical barriers are so we can continue to have a trade of rock lobsters into China.
Export veteran George Stavrinos has opted to cook or freeze much of his stockpile. He doesn't think the standoff will last and has 100 tonnes of lobster waiting in his Perth cooler until prices recover. He says in the normal market, his live lobster goes legitimately to Hong Kong, though he doesn't know what happens after that.
All the lobster landing to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong transport to China, to Xinjiang. I'm not sure how they're doing. My job landing the lobster in Hong Kong. All they're doing there, I never ask, you know.
China has shut the Hong Kong border trade sporadically before, but past crackdowns have never lasted so long. Some believe the only permanent solution is a free trade deal with China.
It is still our hope that everything will go back to normal quickly, and then in the longer term, hopefully we can reach some sort of agreement where we can trade freely and without this sort of stress and uncertainty.
New Zealand will have a zero tariff environment as of next year. Now that will put Australian rock lobster exporters at a disadvantage. That's why it's so important for the Australian government to focus on negotiating a free trade agreement with China as soon as possible.
The federal government wouldn't be drawn about progress on a Chinese trade agreement or current seafood tariffs.
It's not for me to judge what is appropriate or not in relation to other countries' duties. What's important to me is that we continue to have a legitimate trade overseas.
In the meantime, the silver lining of this turmoil could be low prices for consumers at Australian fish markets. Michael Angelakis' family has been catching and selling seafood in South Australia for 80 years. He feels for the fishermen whose income has plummeted, but is predicting bargains for shoppers heading into the holidays.
The prices have come down, that's encouraged consumption, so it's great news for the domestic market and the consumer that really buys lobster only one time of the year, which is Christmas.